A charge line can be raised or lowered utilizing the clove hitch and the half hitch combination. The clove hitch is placed around the hose just below the cuff line with the half hitch safety. A bite is then formed at the standing part of the line. The line is then passed through the bail, twisted to form a half hitch around the tip of the nozzle. This method of securing the nozzle eliminates the possibility of the nozzle bumping or snagging the structure, hence turning on the nozzle. And you know what problems can arise if that happens. Now during any of these operations, it may be necessary to lengthen a line utilizing the sheets bend. To properly tie the sheets bend, a bite is formed in the end of the line. If the lines are of different diameters, remember, the bite is made in the larger of the two lines. Pass the running part of the second line up through the bite and around the outside of the bite, forming a loop, as the running part is passed under its standing part. Pull the knot snug to complete the sheets bend. Double or triple knotting is an unnecessary waste of time and effort. Remember, knots work on the principle of friction, and if properly tied, knots will safely complete a given task, provided that the line is sufficient strength and in good condition. As I mentioned before, knots decrease the strength of a line at the knot up to 45% depending on the knot utilized. This is because the fibers on the outside of the knot are being stretched while the fibers on the inside are being compressed. Many departments switch working ends of the lines on a regular basis to promote even wear of the lines. Now what we've learned so far is the 3 basic knots used in firefighting. I'm going to take the next little while and go over some other knots valuable to the fire services. The first knot we're going to explore is the classic figure 8. This knot is very simple to do, but it is complicated if you miss a step. I'll show you what I mean. What we're going to do is take the rope and make it into a bite. Then take the running end over the standing and back under and around, and as you can see, it looks like an 8. Now bring it under and through the bite, and when it pulled, it becomes a basic overhand knot. There's your air. What you need to do, instead of going under through the bite, come back over the top and then down through the bite. One thing you will notice, if the knot's right, it looks nice and neat. Now doesn't that look nice and neat? What I'm going to do now is I'm going to demonstrate it for you one more time. So now if you start off in the opposite direction, I'm going to show you how that's done. So if you don't go over the standing, you go underneath it. So instead of going over with the first one we did, this one you would instead go down and up through. And there's your figure 8. To help out in teaching you some more knots, I'm going to have the assistance of the brilliant Captain Joe Bruni.
What we're going to demonstrate is the proper procedure for making the double loop figure 8. We start off by taking a piece of rope and forming a bite. It should be a bite of substantial length, so we have enough rope to do our double loop figure 8. And we start off by forming our round turn, which is the first step in making the double loop figure 8, crossing around the back side, but instead of dropping it back down through the round turn, which is what we would do to form the single loop figure 8, we just lay it on top instead of dropping it through the round turn. We then reach through our loop and grab the 2 pieces that would normally drop through and pull tight until the whole knot tightens up, forming the double loop figure 8. Double loop figure 8, good way to substantially anchor a rope to 2 different anchor points or to tie it onto a victim as a rescue harness. Double loop figure 8. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is how to tie the simple figure 8 follow-through knot. The figure 8 follow-through is a great knot to join two pieces of rope together to make one longer rope, or to attach a rope around something for hoisting purposes. We start off by tying the simple figure 8 in one rope by making the round turn, crossing underneath with the running part of the rope, making one more round turn, and then coming up underneath the original round turn to form the simple figure of 8 knot. To form the figure 8 follow through, we simply take the other end of another piece of rope or the same rope and follow the 8 by entering the original figure 8 where that rope exited and following that figure 8 completely around the same pattern and same way that the old or original figure 8 was formed with. We simply follow around through each round turn, exiting on the opposite end of where we started, and we cinch up the knot, forming the figure 8 follow through for joining two pieces of rope. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is how to tie the double fisherman, or sometimes referred to as the grapevine knot. The grapevine or double fisherman is a great knot to secure two pieces of rope together because it's a self-tightening knot. We start by taking two separate pieces of rope and laying them side by side. We then take one of the pieces of rope and go around that other piece of rope twice to form what's called a double overhand knot. Pull it tight and cinch it down. And then we do the same with the other end of the rope by passing it around itself twice and pulling it through. Once we dress up the knot and tighten it, we can pull the two pieces of rope tight and form the fisherman's or grapevine knot. And in a smaller piece of rope, it will look something along those lines, which is similar to the way a grapevine looks, hence the name grapevine knot. Self-tightening knot, so it can be easily pulled apart and slid along or tightened up. And the more tension, the tighter the knot. Grapevine knot, great knot to use. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is the proper technique for tying the double overhand stopper knot. We basically take our piece of rope, and just like we would form our regular overhand knot to form a stopper knot, we make the running part of the rope go around the standing part of the rope twice instead of once. We pass it through and we tighten up the knot. Double overhand stopper knot is an effective knot to secure the end of a rope inside of something like a rope bag, or to secure the end of that rope in some other fashion that you deem necessary. Double overhand stopper knot is an excellent knot to continually secure the end of a rope, and also can be used as a safety to finish off any knot that we would want to finish off and not have our original knot come untied. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is the proper procedure to tie what's called the one-way knot. The one-way knot is nothing more than first starting off with a figure of 8 knot by forming our round turn, coming around the back side of the standing part of the rope, another round turn, and then back through the front side of the original bite to form the figure of 8. The one-way knot would be simply taking our second piece of rope, coming through that first bite at the top, around the back side, and then right up through that original bite that we came through, tightening it up. The one-way knot. Great knot used for technical rescue purposes where the knot has to pass through a pulley system, and because of its short tails, it does that quickly and efficiently without jamming or getting caught up. The one-way knot, great knot for technical rescue. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is the forming of the water knot. The water knot could also be termed an overhand follow-through. We basically take a piece of rope or webbing and we form the basic overhand knot that many are accustomed to forming. The water knot is nothing more than taking the other end of the rope and following that overhand knot right around where we originally formed our overhand knot, and then passing it through the opposite direction, and then dressing the knot and tightening it. The overhand knot is a great knot to secure the end of a piece of webbing when tying a seat or a harness on an individual, or just securing the end of a rope or putting two ropes together. The water knot is basically a quick, simple finish off to a piece of rope to form the end of the line and make it secure. The water knot, great knot to understand and learn. What we're going to demonstrate and talk about is the proper way to make a tensionless hitch around an object for securing the end of a rope. The purpose of the tensionless hitch is to not put a great deal of strain on the rope itself. And we basically take the rope, form it into a bight, and tie what's called the figure of 8 on a bight. The figure of 8 on a bight forms a loop at the end. We then attach something like a D-ring or a carabiner to the end of that rope and pass it around whatever object we want to secure it to 2 to 3 times. Could be a pole, could be a pipe, could be a tree, or anything along those lines. Once it's been passed along several times around the object, we then clip that D-ring or carabiner and tighten up the rope until what we have is called a tensionless hitch. Tensionless hitch is a great way to attach the rope to an object without putting unnecessary due strain on the rope. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is the simple technique to tying the butterfly knot. The butterfly's purpose is to form a locking loop in the middle of any rope. The butterfly knot can take the place of a figure 8 on a bight or a bowline on a bight. To form the butterfly knot, we simply lay the rope across the palm of our hand, and we're going to wrap or form 3 loops around our palm to the inside of that first wrap. We form the first one to the inside and hold it. We form the second one to the inside of the first 2 and hold it. Then we grab the middle one, lift it, cross over the most inner one, and then pass that through the hole that we've formed and pull that tight until we form what's called the butterfly knot. To finish off the knot, we simply pull it and pop the knot to where we have what looks like 2 wings that's self-locking, forming the butterfly knot. This can be attached to any object or anchor point, taking the place of the figure 8 on the bight or the bowline on the bight. Great knot to know in addition to those 2 knots is the butterfly knot. What we're going to do is discuss and demonstrate how we're going to tie the simple chimney hitch for securing an object or a rope around an object. We basically would take our rope and tie it off to an anchor point first, which the rope is tied off behind me to that anchor point. We then would stretch the rope tight between that anchor point and the other anchor point we want to go around. We then take the rope and pass it through by forming a loop around the secondary anchor point. Once, twice through the loop and pull the rope tight. The second loop, we cross over the first loop to form a locking type of loop, and we can slide that knot to tighten it up and put as much tension on the rope as necessary. We would then finish the rope off with either a clove hitch at the end or an overhand safety knot to finish off the knot at the end. Simple chimney hitch to tighten a rope between two objects. What we're going to demonstrate is a quick and efficient way to tie what's called the handcuff knot. The handcuff knot is really just a variation of tying a clove hitch around a substantial object. One palm down, one palm up. We roll our hands the natural way they would roll, crossing them over in front. At this point, where the ropes cross and form that pretzel-looking type of pattern, we take the back one, pull it forward. We take the forward one and pull it backward through the holes to the point where we form two loops. These two loops can be applied to any victim's arms or legs and then pulled tightly to form that handcuff knot that we can use that piece of rope as a rescue aid to remove that victim from whatever harm or hazard they're in. The handcuff knot, great knot. What we're going to talk about and demonstrate is the basic techniques on how to apply a prusik knot. Now, the first thing that has to happen before we can make a prusik knot is we have to have a piece of rope that is tied in a loop of some type or a piece of webbing that is tied into a loop. The prusik knot is basically taking the rope, laying it over the object, and pulling it around through the hole that we formed 2 to 3 times. Once we pass it through 2 to 3 times, we pull that taut, bring it all together, and we form what's called the prusik knot. The application of the prusik knot is a great knot to use as a braking system in the middle of a mainline rope, so we can use that as a handle to pull on or to keep tight on that main line. The prusik knot is nothing more than a variation of the girth hitch by passing the rope, instead of once, 2 to 3 times through that hole and pulling it tight. Prusik knot, great knot that firefighters use very frequently. The prusik knot is one of the most important tools that a firefighter can carry on about their person. This is tied into what's called a grapevine knot or double fisherman's knot, that is a self-tightening knot forming a loop into a short piece of rope. This rope can be carried in a bunker pants pocket, turnout coat pocket, or even up inside the coat sleeve of a firefighter. The advantage of carrying a prusik knot inside of the gear is when we encounter victims. Now, the victims could be a civilian victim that we find down inside the structure, or it could even be a firefighter. Either way, it's still a victim. The prusik knot carried on the firefighter will enable the rescuer to quickly form that prusik knot around the limb of the feet, the arms, or any other part of the body, where it can be quickly wrapped around and used as a convenient carrying and dragging tool to remove that victim quickly. Without the prusik knot, many firefighters will be forced to pull on arms and legs and other limbs of victims to try and effect a removal or do something like a blanket drag or some type of carry. The prusik knot, one of the most important tools that a firefighter can carry on their person. What we're going to discuss and demonstrate is how to attach a rope to an object using the figure 8 follow-through technique. The figure 8 follow-through is nothing more than first taking your piece of rope and tying your normal figure 8 into it. The key to being successful with this knot is ensuring that you have enough running part of the rope to follow through the figure 8, because the figure 8 does take quite a bit of rope as you are following it through. So we first tie our figure 8 knot in the rope, like so, and then we take the rope and place it around our object that we want to go around. Then we simply follow the figure 8 back through by entering the area that we exited from first, following it around, completely encompassing the 8, and then back through, exiting from the opposite side that we first entered, forming the figure 8 follow through, which is now tied around an object. Figure 8 follow through. Great knot to attach a rope to an object. What we're going to demonstrate is a proper technique to tie off a Halligan tool for hoisting purposes. There's one knot and 2 hitches that will be used to demonstrate this. Now, either the bowline or the figure 8 on a bite could be used to start with. I'm going to choose the figure 8 on the bite. We form a bite in the rope and tie our standard figure 8 knot on a bite into it. We place that open end of that figure 8 on a bite over our Halligan tool, down to the adze and the horn region of that tool. We then wrap it up underneath and take the standing part of our rope and form a half hitch, placing it over the end of the tool and sliding it down part way. One more time, a half hitch placed over the end of the tool, sliding it down about 1/3 of the way, and the Halligan tool is now ready to be hoisted anywhere on an upper floor where we may need it. What we're going to demonstrate and discuss is how to apply and tie a rescue harness around a victim using a simple piece of rope. We take our piece of rope and we need at least 8 to 10 feet of rope to tie our double loop figure 8. We then take our bite that we formed with that 8 to 10 foot of rope and tie our double loop figure 8, which is going to form our leg loops. We then pass those leg loops over the victim's legs and pull those leg loops up to form the seat part of the harness. We form another bite in the rope, twist it several times, and place it over the victim's head and arms, and then take the standing part of the rope and pull it tight. We now have the harness tied from a simple piece of rope to rescue a victim from any situation that we need to provide. What we're going to talk about is the short piece of rope that is normally anywhere from 10 to 15 feet long that a firefighter can use and carry about so they can use it quickly on the fire ground. The short piece of rope carried should have some type of clip on the end of it so it can be attached to a substantial object like an anchor point or a search rope. This rope is very useful for going into a larger area where a firefighter may experience disorientation because they come off of a wall or off of a hose line into blinding smoke and zero visibility. This rope is clipped onto a search rope or the anchor point. The firefighter swings off of the wall or hose line, searches the area, and it serves as a very good aid to get you back to that substantial anchor point where you started from. This rope can also be used to tie off things such as hose lines on ladders or hose lines to